Chris Campbell, State Representative for District 26 in Indiana. It's really interesting. There are just so many subjects and areas that you cover in the state. Being an expert at everything is very challenging because I never know what kind of legislation is going to come before me and how quickly I'm going to have to become knowledgeable about that subject. In the last 2 years, you mean? I was elected in 2018, and you know, my life has changed a lot. I've learned a lot more about what's happening in the state. It has continued to increase my drive to try to change things in the state. It's been discouraging losing so many members. It's become more difficult. One of the biggest things that I decided that I could do was to reach out to the public, try to make sure that they were aware of what's going on at the state level, and to try to educate our communities and our voters as to what's going on. I think most people, when they don't, it's not affecting them personally. They just don't do anything about it. I think unless things that personally affect you, and you feel like your life is fine, then you know there's no reason to do anything. But I think a lot of people that could do something feel hopeless, and that it's not important enough to go out and vote because it's not going to make a difference. But I think change takes a long time, and especially someplace like in Indiana where we're actually losing every election, and we're going backward. And you're right, they don't feel any change by going to vote because it's not changing, because we haven't reached the entire state. I guess, you know, many of us struggle with mental illness, and I would say that is one of my struggles. I struggle with anxiety and depressive disorders at times. So that I would say that's one of my struggles. I think that being a state legislator helps bring me out of that, because it gives me a lot of energy when I feel like I'm making a difference and using that energy, but I can quickly crash after that. It certainly is frustrating, and it certainly was way more frustrating this past year, and especially this year at the State House. There's only 29 of us out of 100, and it was made very clear that we didn't matter, our opinions didn't matter, and the things that we were fighting for didn't matter, and told things like elections matter. When elections matter and the same thing happens over and over again, and you know, people are still not getting better jobs, they're still not getting access to health care, they're still not getting access to living wages in Indiana. When we try to offer amendments to bills to try to increase the minimum wage, you know, and it's voted down, the majority of the state has decided that these things don't matter. You voted for them, so these are issues that do not matter to the voters of Indiana. No, I don't feel like that's their job, unless you're talking about, you know, addressing things like mental health. Then I do feel like they need to step in, and they haven't done enough. Those would be great contributions. I feel like those are the roles of our government. I would say that defines my priorities. I would say that the priorities of the state that is in power, that is not their priority. To me, the government's role is for the people, to make sure that we are combining our resources, our tax dollars for the people, not for making companies richer, not for making the wealthy wealthier, but to build our state, to put that money into education. Yes, we did put an extra $1 billion into our K through 12 program, but we didn't expand money for our preschool programs. They expanded a lot of money into private schools and vouchers and charter schools, but we didn't put any extra money into higher education. We didn't make access to healthcare easier. We made it harder by some of the legislation that went through. So I really don't feel like the way we are using our tax dollars is for the benefit of our state and for people. Unfortunately, I can't directly say that I did anything, but I did testify multiple times to increase the $300,000 that they normally put into the food banks. They increased it to $1 million per year over the next 2 years. That was one of the things that I fought for. I know that I had testified to increase money for our trails, which will help get people outside. They are putting money into our trail systems throughout the state. We've seen a lot of people going to the state parks over the past year and getting outside. So having them more public access to being able to get outside and exercise will help with some of our healthcare issues in the state. I fought to increase the cigarette tax, which will help decrease the number of smokers in our state, which would greatly help with infant mortality and healthcare costs and in our state. I fought for more dollars to go to our mental health dollars in our state, which were cut drastically. We were down about $20 million, and for every dollar that the state spends, we lose $2 for federal money coming in. They did restore most of it. We're still about $2 million short in our substance abuse dollars, which I'm greatly disappointed in, because these are investments that are important for our state because they help in so many ways. From our jails to infant mortality to just families, the Department of Child Services. There's there's so many things that those dollars can help. No, I don't feel that it has. I'm hoping that it's made some difference to fight for some of those extra things, to make sure that the legislators put those extra priorities in restoring those dollars, but they certainly didn't do all that they could, as I mentioned before. But I think that my being there and just making sure that I testify on those important issues, at least I hope that message gets out to the community so that they're aware of what's happening and that they will continue to not only be aware, but they will help join in the fight. If you're thinking about legislatively, I think when we look at the direct connection between large donors and legislation, I think that's corruption. I think it's unethical for a legislator to create legislation that directly benefits themselves, which they're not supposed to do, or their friends. There was legislation created for single people in the state that changed, things for the entire state because one person wanted to save money or to benefit. So to me, that was corrupt. I think it depends on what part of the Democratic Party. I'm sure you're going to find the people in the Democratic Party that would fall under this category. All I can say is, I know where my donations come from and I know how I vote. And, if you're trying to sway me in some way by dollars, you better have a really good, reason that I can support. The legislation that I support in this state, I look at the bills, I make sure that, is this something that the entire state needs? Or is this, going to benefit a single person, a single group? What are the implications? And I think a lot of the legislation that we've been passing takes away local control. That's not our job. We're supposed to be passing things that are kind of baseline for the state. What are the baseline things that we expect for the entire state to do? That breaks my heart. Because the only way Indiana is ever going to pass the minimum wage and increase the minimum wage is if it gets passed federally. The last time it passed was over 10 years ago, and that's when it was increased at the federal level. It's when you don't increase the minimum wage for workers, you're saying every year you're going to make less money and that you deserve less money. Right now, a minimum wage doesn't pay for living standards, and 90% of people who make the minimum wage are raising families and trying to make ends meet, and there just isn't any way to do that. So it's really disappointing that it was taken out. Oh yes, I do, absolutely. Maybe I'm being unrealistic, but I know that we have been trying at the state level every year. We actually don't file a bill because we're in a minority. We have to use it as a strategy. The only way we can even talk about a bill like that, because it won't get a hearing in committee, is to offer it as an amendment. So we offer it to the budget, we offer it on every opportunity we can get. We had an amendment this year that tied it to our incomes, which go up because they tied the legislators' incomes to the judges' incomes several years ago. So it wouldn't look like we were giving ourselves raises. So this amendment tied it, so it said it was a percentage of the legislators' incomes. So that would force it every time the legislators got an increase in wage, the minimum wage would have to go up. No, I have no interest in running at the federal level. I'm trying to continue at the state level. I certainly, I didn't plan to run even at the state level. I was actually running for a township board seat, and I was asked to run for the state level. So yeah, my aspirations are probably peaked out. I don't think, I think I can do more. I think that the closer you are to the local level, the more you can do. So I feel like by the time you get to the federal level, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's really difficult to get things done. I think that was something that I did decide, especially after this past election, that I try to talk to as many people as I can about what is happening at the state level, so that they're at least informed and they know my viewpoints and they know where I stand and why I'm working towards certain goals. Well, I feel like I'm very vocal when it comes to that. It's anybody I talk to will hear my stories about the charter schools and voucher schools, and and how I feel that that really does a disservice to our state public schools. And there are millions of dollars pouring into to campaigns across the country for that reason. There's donors who really, they're not giving money to me because they know how opposed to these viewpoints that I have. So they're not even going to donate to me. Certainly lobbyists have direct access to us, but they shouldn't have any more access to the next voter. That's absolutely, that just shouldn't be the case. I don't know that it's my tactics. I think that it's just, getting that information out, making sure that, like I said, people in my community, I try to let them know. I'm very available to the media to do interviews. Of course, you get a soundbite. So it's really difficult to get that information out. But I certainly use social media a lot, and I try to update people, go to events, our Chamber of Commerce does a legislative update, so you're hitting more different parts of the community, from your conservative to your less conservative groups. So I think it's really important to get that information out about what's happening and finding out what they want to happen, to make changes. Am I happy? I'm content in my life. I'm happy that I have 2 healthy children and a wonderful, supportive husband. I'm happy that, I'm healthy and secure in my life. I feel a strong drive to fight for those less fortunate than myself. So it gives me purpose, but it's a struggle when I know what I'm faced against.